Welcome to the museum. We're happy very much so that Boxcar's children draw the same kind of crowds he did. So it must be in the genes. So we thank you again very much for coming to this museum, Branson Centennial Museum, part of the White River Valley Historical Society. We also have a museum and research library in Forsyth. And we depend entirely upon memberships, donations, so we appreciate all the help that you have given us and will continue to give us, we hope. The reason we're in these facilities is through the generosity of Barb and Joe Reach, who, when they closed the business here, invited the museum in, and we're enjoying this. Also, you're here in the inaugural use of a very new and sophisticated sound system provided from a donation by Sherry Hersham, which we deeply appreciate. The third Tuesday of each month, except in December, as you know, we do have a program. Today, of course, we know what that relates to. And the February 21 meeting, we'll be delighted to have Alderman Marshall Howden at the rear of the room, another member of his family, talking about his grandfather, Mel Tillis.
Who was friends with our dad.
March 21 will be backstage at the Shepherd of the Hills drama. That is giving us insights to what goes on in that particular drama. On April 18, the meeting presentation will be about Don Gardner, the origin of golf in the Ozarks, by Ross Summers and Mark Spike. Ross, I think, is here also. So if you know anything about the history of golf here, Ross would like to hear about it. We have plans, of course, for developing on the rest of the year, so we will keep you posted. Today, of course, we're going to hear about one of Branson's great legends, Boxcar Willie. And we're so delighted that we can have Laurie Brown and Boxcar Willie Jr., Larry Martin, tell us all about her father. Please do.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. My goodness. Wow, what a crowd. We did not expect to see this many people. I don't know how to start this off, so I'm going to pass it to my sister. A few years ago, about 3 years ago, I got really sick. And I had to learn how to walk and talk, and I don't speak, especially don't sing anymore. But I'll try to do my best. But my portion is going to be, if you have any questions, I'll try to answer them.
Yeah, he's really good at that. Is my mic working?
Yeah.
It is working, okay. So what brought us here, back in '87, we were living in Texas, and Dad had came and played in Branson and played at the Roy Clark Theater and kept selling it out every time he played here. And you know, he was an older gentleman at that time, and I think he just wanted to get off the road. And this was a really wonderful opportunity for our family because we never got to see our dad. I would totally forget what he looked like. He was gone all the time. When he was home, he was sleeping all the time. So this was such a wonderful experience for entertainers, because I don't think people realize that they get to stay home and the people come to them. So it was amazing for our family. We actually got to see our dad more. So Branson was wonderful at that time for that. And so we moved here from Texas. We had no idea where Missouri was or what it was. Although we have loved it. We still call it our home. We both still live here. I'm a Texas native at heart, but I love Missouri. So Branson was a wonderful experience for our family. And we've been here, like I said, since '87. And Larry performed on the show. Larry toured with my dad on the show. I would MC the show. I had a hair salon here in town for years. You know, so yeah, this is our home, and we love it. And our dad loved it. Dad loved everything about Branson. Getting off the road. He loved the people here. He loved the small town. He loved everything about it.
Yeah, one of the nice things was when we moved up here, like Lori said, Texas was in our hearts, but Dad quickly said Missouri was his home. So that was nice. And we were young, so it took a while for that to kick in. But
you get older, you really appreciate a place like Branson. You really do. Yeah. I was at my house and I heard sirens at my house, like some ambulance or something was driving by the road. We don't hear that. It's not much here in Branson that you even hear that. So, everything about Branson is wonderful, and all the community to my dad, the people here, the bus tours. If anybody used to be here when all the bus tours came in, I mean, it was just a wonderful experience. The 76 strip that was just packed all the time. I remember we worked at the theater. It was probably our first jobs. When we? No, okay. For me, it was our first. And just the amount of people before the doors would ever open, and I would pull up to the theater, and people would be lined out. And it's now the Dutton Theater. But people would be lined up from our ticket booth all the way out to 76, and that's how Branson used to be. You were stuck in traffic, and people just waiting in line for tickets, and every show was sold out, and it was a wonderful, wonderful experience back then. And it still is. I love everything about Branson now, but back then there was just something very special about Branson at that time when Dad came here. And of course, he was one of the Mel Tillis, like I said, his grandson's here. He was one of the next ones that came here, and entertainers loved this. Entertainers loved it because they got off the road, and they got to be home with their family, and people came instead to them. So, and we'd love to open this up to questions. We have never done one of these, but this, again, we are twins. We are Dad's youngest children. We grew up in Texas. We were born in Idaho. Our dad was in the Air Force when we were young, and he was a radio disc jockey. And then soon he was singing in bands, his own band, but then he became Boxcar Willie. And I think Larry will say he remembers this too. We remember when Dad used to have to take a cork and burn it and put on his beard like that. He would literally take a cork and burn it, and he would shadow in his beard. And I remember the first time he put on a hobo outfit. Of course, he said he could always do the train whistle, and it was just, and he could do the train whistle very well. But we remember when Boxcar Willie became Boxcar Willie. You know, before that he was Marty Martin and the Train Man. Right, that's what he went by. Yeah. Larry's gonna know more about that. He, like I said, he remembers a lot more of it. So does anybody have questions? Yes.
So, how much of your dad's persona did he take on? Did he really become Boxcar Willie, or was he, sort of that what he was at home, a different persona? How much did he take on?
Well, he grew up in East Texas, the rural part, and hobos were not an uncommon thing. I don't think Dad professionally or for jobs rode the rails, but I think for fun, every now and then, he and friends would ride the rails. and he's got, I wouldn't say he got friendly, but like I said, hobos were not an uncommon thing. And the old coat, the fedora hat, and the bandana, well, that was the 1930s and 40s of the hobo, and that's what he saw, and that was his gimmick. He said, I want to try this hobo thing, because he could always do that train whistle. And so, knowing he could do the train whistle, and I think he felt pretty comfortable about singing. And so the two just kind of blended together, and he said, I'm going to try this, and it worked.
But he also had no airs about him, though. I remember when he went to go buy a truck, and the guy didn't even want to talk to him because he didn't, he thought he was just literally, I'm not going to waste my time with you, so he definitely put no airs on about himself. Yeah, for sure.
Jim, do you have the hobo outfit?
Part of it is in the window, yes. His overalls are in the window.
Yeah, we've donated. This is how this all started. I played tennis with Ann McDowell, where she's at. She's in here, but and there's another tennis friend back there. But so she said, there's this museum, and if you want to donate anything of your dad's, and so we decided to come down here and donate one of his costumes. And this is how this all started. Is Jim told us about these talks, and so yeah, we said, well, we would do one. And of course, I was supposed to come here for support when I'm now a speaker. So we've donated some things down here, and it's an original Boxcar Willie outfit, hat. This is literally what he wore on stage. We've got tons of pictures on these tables that we brought in. These are literally out of my photo box at my house, and I brought some just so you could see. You'll literally see me and him as little babies in there.
I have a question. The musicians in his band, did that come with him, or did you have other musicians here?
All the musicians came with Dad. They were all on the road. All of their families then moved here. And I will speak for all of them because I'm still friends with a lot of them. They loved it. They loved everything about, again, people do not realize how wonderful this is for musicians, families, that they actually get to see their families more often.
I have a question. Is everybody live here? Yeah. Awesome. Yes, ma'am.
What was his music background growing up?
I don't think, I don't remember him ever talking about like being in music class or anything. I think
He was self-taught, everything. Yeah. And
yeah.
I remember we came home and we had heard Roseanne Cash's Tennessee Flat Top Box. Me and you had heard it for the first time. We came home and we told Dad about it. Do you remember this story? Okay. And literally Dad gets on the piano or the guitar and he just literally just plays it. And everything he did was by ear. And that was amazing to me. Just amazing. He'd never played it. He'd never played that song. But we had heard it on the radio and I said, oh my gosh, we just heard this really cool song. And and he wrote, he sang a lot of Hank Williams, Jimmy Rogers songs, but he wrote a lot of his own music. And we have tablets and tablets and tablets of songs that he's just written, and we'll find a piece of paper. I gave some to Jim, and literally there was this 8x10 of Dad, and on the back is the song he wrote, and so yeah, he was always writing songs. And I went on a trip with Dad, and the whole way, I think we were going to Vegas, the whole way there, he was writing songs, and I was helping him write songs, and so yeah, everything he did, I think he just listened to the Grand Ole Opry, and he loved country music, and he was a radio disc jockey, and so yeah, that really, probably helped.
Okay, a lot of times you can tell what a person liking their music if they're home and they're not out in the public, they'll have their own music, or they're in the car. Would that tell you exactly where they were at with their music and their in their head?
Yes, if we tried to play anything but country, he was one of those, oh, what is that? You know, Larry's a huge Elvis fan. He liked Elvis. He did like Elvis. But he wanted country music played in the house, and you didn't dare.
I remember one time I was taking him from the house to the theater. Something was wrong with his car, so he rode with me, and I had a tape of Bruce Springsteen, and he shut that radio off, and he said, "What the are you listening to?" And I said, "Well, it's Bruce Springsteen." He said, "If it ain't country, I don't want to hear it."
But I will say he has some good taste, because I actually played Clint Black in the theater one time over the loudspeakers, and he thought it was Merle Haggard, and he liked it. He thought it was Merle Haggard, yeah.
About how old was he when he started in Texas? I mean, did he write songs, or did he just get a garage type band, or how did he get his, do you guys know how he got his start?
So we were his youngest children, and I think he was 40 years old when he had us. And so there's a whole life that was before us. So we do not remember the Marty Martin and the Trainmen, all this. That was in Boise, Idaho. And how he met our mother is he was playing in a band, and she was there, and so literally this is a whole lifetime of how he started and that whole band way before our time. So no, I really don't know when he started or even how he.
Well, he became Boxcar Willie while he was in the Air Force.
But she's talking about when he first started singing.
Well, I mean that's been quite a while back, so that's a good start.
Yeah.
But he was performing before that.
He was performing before that as Marty Martin and the Trainmen, yeah. And like I said, he was a disc jockey during the day, and he would sing with his little band at night, yeah.
You know, I think one of the records I gave Jim for the museum is that album, Marty Martin, and he wrote a song called "They Call Me Boxcar Willie," and that was in 1960. And so if you look at that album, I don't know if you can look at that album.
There's actually one on the table.
But he had that idea way back then.
Tell me the story of how he came up with the whole Boxcar Willie.
Well, he was in, I believe it was Lincoln, Nebraska. And he was, like I said, he was in the Air Force. And he was at a stoplight, and the arm for a train crossing came down. And the train was going by real slow. And there was a hobo sitting on the train with his feet kicked out of one of the boxcars and just sitting there as this train went by. He goes, "Well, there goes Boxcar Willie." And so he wrote a song called Boxcar Willie.
Well, there was a guy in the Air Force named Willie Wilson that he served with. And I don't know if he served with Mel Tillis, but Mel Tillis and my dad were in the Air Force together. But there was also a man named Willie Wilson. And he said, "Well, that looks like Willie Wilson in the Boxcar Willie." And that's how that all became. Yeah. And so that's the whole Boxcar Willie.
What years was he in the Air Force?
He went in the Air Force in 1949, got discharged in 1960, and then was a reservist for the Texas Air National Guard until '76.
And that's when we, like, basically, that would have been our time as the Air National Guard.
So he was retired from service?
Did Boxcar pursue Nashville, or did Nashville pursue him when he got popular? Was his ambition to go to Nashville at any point and try to make it big, like a lot of the entertainers?
I'm sure. I mean, I still remember just becoming a member of the Grand Ole Opry was one of his lifetime achievements. I mean, it was one of his proudest moments.
But did record producers come to pursue him like if they come here to see him?
And again, I don't remember. Does anyone remember the Boxcar Willie commercial on TV where he sold his albums? I mean, that is what I first remember. Is that
on YouTube?
It's probably on YouTube. It's probably on YouTube now. I thought, and that is amazing. As children of Boxcar Willie, that people upload stuff all the time that I have never seen of my dad. So that is so wonderful that people upload stuff that they filmed at concerts.
That's my avenue for artists from far back as I can remember when I was small. Now I use YouTube for that purpose.
Yes, yes. I mean, and
History that's with it.
yeah, it's really wonderful for us because these are things that we would not have gotten to see, and people will upload them, and all of a sudden it's like it's up there. It's wonderful, yeah. But yeah, he sold these albums on TV, and that's where Mule Train and all that when we were little. And I remember when he was on the Gong Show and he won the Gong Show. Do you remember that? He literally was on the Gong Show, and I remember we had everyone over at our house because no one knew the winner. We knew it, but and he had won the Gong Show, and we had to be very little. But
I'll look and see if that's on YouTube. Then.
yeah, I looked for that. So if you find it, please contact me because I have looked for it. Yes, yes.
His Air Force job, was that as disc jockey or something more?
No, he was a
flight engineer.
Flight engineer. Yeah, and he had a nose of the airplane that he used to fly in our museum behind the theater for years. I don't know where that nose is now. But could it be this other museum? I don't know.
Well, I'd heard after Dad died that the Branson Veterans Museum took possession of that nose, and I don't know if they still have it or not. But I saw a photo. I was telling Lori on the way over here. There's a picture of Dad in the seat of that. He was a flight engineer, so he sat behind the pilot and co-pilot. And there's a photo of him in that cockpit. And me and him, Dad and I, God, I guess it took about a year. We took all those lights and instruments and made them work again. I didn't think he had the knowledge to do that. But if you see the airplanes that he was a flight engineer of, the KC-97, the C-5A,
B-29.
was it B-29? The B-29. Yeah, I can't remember the rest of them. But they were big airplanes. And the fact that he could do that, and like Lori said, he had this whole other life before we were born. And he was a flight engineer on that. And if you ever see the C-5A take off, Dad told me one time one of the reasons he had to quit the Air Force was because he was thinking about music so much. But he felt he was putting his team members, the pilot and co-pilot and everybody, in jeopardy because he wouldn't, I guess you'd have to concentrate on what you were doing, but it wasn't in his heart. And so he felt like, I better get out of here before I, either hurt myself or hurt these guys that depend on, somebody who's not thinking about.
We actually lived in Madrid, Spain with Dad because he was teaching the Spanish over there how to fly. When we were from the age of 2 to 4, we lived over in Madrid, Spain. Yeah. And everybody wanted to touch our hair. So all I've heard is that I screamed all the time because we are naturally blonde and people wanted to touch our hair all the time, and I guess I did not enjoy that. So.
When Tony got the key to the city, he talked about your dad being involved in ramping up all the veterans events. Can you talk a little bit about his love for the veterans and love for America?
Dad's love?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. He asked, when Tony Orlando received the key to the city of Branson, he talked about our father and Dad's love, from 49 to 76. He was in the military in one aspect or another, but he was a very proud American. And our stepsister, Paula, was in the Army for 20 years, and he couldn't have been more proud of her. His military background, being an American, was just something he was so proud of. And God forbid if you said anything bad about America or the flag, he didn't have a problem telling you, you know, how he felt.
Yeah, and back then, and back then, all the Air Force, when he had his show, they would all come here and they all have their reunions, and oh my gosh, that was the week of heaven for our dad, just being around all of his Air Force buddies, having all the veterans in town. I think they come all the time now. But that specific week, I mean, he just, oh my gosh, I don't think he slept at all.
Yeah, I've never seen my father so happy as when he got that nose section of that KC-97, and he got to put his name, the pilot's name, all the names that he flew with, and when they would come to the museum, like Lori said, the Dutton family is where our theater used to be, and that little ice cream shop they have was our museum. And the nose section was in there. And when those military people would come by every year, he was so proud to take them in that cockpit and say, I sat here, and it just, you could just see the joy in his face.
And that's something, if you guys ever went to the show, it's always been a proud thing for me that Dad would stay until the last person left. He always signed autographs. If you wanted to go in the museum, he would walk over there with you, and he would spend hours in there telling you about everything in there. Yeah, history meant a lot to our dad, and the people meant a lot to our dad. Yeah, I mean, he didn't finish his show and head out the door. He literally would stay there until the last person got an autograph. And we know because we had to stay there.
You know, I grew up on the road with him, and that was, you know, at 12, 13 years old boy. After the show would end, Dad would always be signing autographs, and it was such a pain for a youngster, for myself. Hours after the show would end, we'd still be by the, you know, merchandise table because he was signing autographs and talking to people. I was like, shut up, go home. I want to, you know.
He did. He loved being an entertainer, and I think he was very good at it. And I'm, you know, I may be biased, but I think he was a very good entertainer and very good storyteller and a joke teller. And
well, almost 24 years after his death, to see all of you here, it just warms our heart. That is so awesome. Yes, sir.
You know, I just wanted to say, I'm really glad that you mentioned what Tony said when he was given the key to the city about your dad. Because, you know, he told his story about him wanting to kind of do the veterans thing in Branson, that he got all the entertainers, my grandpa, Andy Williams, and all of them, and set them around a table, and that your dad was silent, but that everybody looked to your dad as sort of the dean of the Branson entertainers. And if he said it, it went. You know, and at the very end, I encourage everybody to go and listen to what Tony said, but he got up and he said, I agree with Tony. He left the room. You know?
I have always said, and I said it for years, when my dad spoke, listen, because he didn't talk a lot, but he was an intelligent man. Yeah, and you know, he wanted the best for Branson, and just, you know, he was not a fan of the high road that came in. You know, I'm sorry, Hershins, but he wasn't a fan of that because he knew that was going to cut off from the Branson Loop. And he didn't want any entertainers to be bypassed, you know, and so he fought that hard. And you know, he was going to fight for the little man for sure. You know, he really did care about that, you know, and his own theater, I'm sure. But yeah.
Where was your dad? You talked about Idaho and Texas. Where was he raised up at?
He was a proud Texan.
Texas.
Yeah. We still have family in Waxahachie, Red Oak.
Okay, is that close to Lubbock?
Dallas is really close to
Buddy
Dallas.
Holly and Mac Davis was from Lubbock. And,
Okay, yeah.
and I've met a guy in Utah from Lubbock, Texas, went to school with him.
Yeah. No, we were around the Dallas area, and then we lived in Canton. If you guys have ever been to First Monday in Texas, yeah. And so we had a ranch in Texas, and I'm a huge animal lover, and some of my people know that I have videos on everything on social media about animals. But it came from my dad. My dad was a huge animal lover. I snuck a dog into my dorm at college, and of course then ended up having to bring it home. And Dad takes it right in, and raised it, and he was a huge animal lover. And,
Something funny. It just reminded me of that. I went to school, college, after we graduated Branson, to SBU, and I got a python snake, a little ball python, about 4.5, 5 feet long. Remember?
No. I'm not that big of an animal lover.
I had this snake and had an aquarium in my room, and I had to go back to Bolivar, so I left the snake there. And generally, snakes, if you feed it, can go weeks, months without another feeding. So I felt confident that Sam would be okay. Well, my dad, he went into my room and he saw the aquarium. And so he got down on his knees. Now, my mom is telling me this, but he got down on his knees and was trying to figure out what was in the aquarium. And Sam stuck his head out of wherever the little hot rock or whatever he was hiding under, and scared the living out of my dad.
I remember the story about you. We had land in Hamilton, Texas, and he took you there, and literally people would go there to catch rattlesnakes. And my dad has got his metal detector. He was a big fan of metal detectors, detecting if anybody does that, you do that. And he was with you, and he was bopping a rattlesnake on the head with him, bopping it. And I think it climbed up the thing, and yeah.
Well, we were metal detecting, and we had headphones on. But this snake, his little rattler was split, so he was wiggling and rattling. Thank you. And but he wasn't making no noise, so I didn't hear him. But my dad was a few feet away, and he could see this happening all underneath my feet. And Dad had the habit of every time he heard something, Larry, come over here and dig this. So I'd have to walk over and, dig nothing, find a bottle cap. So when he said, Larry, stop, my first reaction was, what does he want now? I was getting frustrated. But this big rattlesnake, I was standing over it, didn't see it, didn't hear it, because his rattle was split. So Dad came over there with this metal detector that had the hole in it, and he started hitting it. Well, that snake got smart and went through that hole, and Dad dropped the metal detector and we took off running.
It didn't hurt you though, obviously.
Well, there was a little trailer, because they used to have what they called a rattlesnake roundup on that ranch. And it was in West Texas. So me and Dad had made it to this concrete patio about 2 feet off the ground. And he's still hitting this snake, and the snake had followed us over to the patio. And he said, grab me that piece of wood. And there was like a 4x4 post. So I bent over to get the wood, and Dad takes that metal detector and rams it in my butt and says, ah!
That was our dad,
Do you have the first pressing of a record from a record company that got him started doing records? Do you have that first pressing?
No, I don't think we do. And I'll tell, does anyone remember Cheeside Childs?
Yeah.
Okay, she helped found Branson, brought in tons of entertainers, used to have a theater before Dad had a theater here. Her aunt was called Aunt Susie and had the Grapevine Opry in Texas, and this is a place that Larry and I would go to almost every weekend because Aunt Susie had a show at the Grapevine Opry and loved Dad. And Aunt Susie gave Dad the first money to make his first record. So Aunt Susie is on the cover of that record with our dad. And she
What
signed,
record label was that?
I don't even think it was a label. It literally was, one that Dad probably went around to every disc jockey passing it out.
Yeah, I understand that part, but I was wondering when he went to Nashville, did he have a record company that produced records for him after he got big?
Yeah, I don't know that.
That'd be
No.
something to check out.
Well, what Dad would do, the only label that he ever signed a contract for was MCA. But otherwise, he would just go to a studio and cut the record and then make himself his own copies.
Yeah, I got you.
And somebody else had their hand up over here.
I was just wondering, with his talent, obviously, you received some. Did his children, did you? That's what I was wondering. Did you have the
No, I remember when Jeff thought I actually sang on the show. I told him I sang on the show. Like, Jeff, I don't sing on the show. I'm kidding. No, I would MC the show, and especially when Dad got cancer and he was weak. I would come on and I would MC the show. Larry got tons of the talent. Yeah, he like I said, he got tularemia, which is a blood disease. But anyway, so he got really sick and 3-4 years ago, and so he just has not sang as Dad since then. But yeah, you can go on YouTube again and see Larry and my dad singing together, and yeah, he's a great guitar player. He could do the train whistle. I'm trying to talk him into doing the train whistle today, and I don't think he's going to do it. I tried the other day, and I sounded like a dead mule. So we're not going to have me do it, but you could try.
No, I promise you, you don't want to hear me try.
You could go on YouTube and see that he really, he really did.
Well, for years, I used to, after Dad died, I took up what I thought would be the mantle. And so me and my son, we would go out and perform. He was my little road manager and helper as Boxcar Willie Jr. And I'd love to sing and play in front of people. And now I can't. All right. Well, I picked up that guitar this morning, and I tried to do a song, and it just, I don't want to put you through that.
It is what it is.
It is what it is.
Did he teach you how to play, or did you just kind of pick it up on your own like he did?
Well, back in the theater, there used to be a monitor of the show, because Dad would film the shows. So this monitor would be in our dressing room, and I would sit back there, and with my guitar, and I'd put my fingers where I thought their fingers were. And so when the lead guitarist took his ride, I would try to imitate, or when I'd see Dad playing rhythm, I would try to imitate that, and that's how I learned how to play guitar.
And that's amazing to me. That's just amazing. Yeah. Do we have any other questions?
Well, I want to say thank you so much for coming out. Wow. To see anybody that showed up is phenomenal. But 20-something years, because Dad died in April of '99, and that gives you almost 24 years later. And to see all of you here, thank you so much. And thank you, Jim.